Sometimes a good push through a window gets the adrenaline running.
Why do you keep looking at
Well,
me?
that'll be the outtake.
Somebody get pushed through a window?
Okay, here we go again. Sometimes a good push through the window gets the adrenaline running. I'm Anthony.
I'm Damon.
I'm David.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Jim.
Why do you keep
Welcome to
doing
issue
this?
number 144 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Each and every week we meet here to talk about comics.
Why'd you do
This week's
that?
episode, we will
Why'd you
jump
wait?
right into the weekly reviews, in which we will go all around the internet and talk about the books that we've been reading.
Do
both
not
weeks.
stress the part that says amino sumini.
That's your tip of the day, everybody. So remember that and take that home with you. And then, yep. Okay, so we're going to do weekly reviews. We will have a news section in which we're going to cover the independent preview items for stuff that is coming out in October and beyond from independent publishers. I might just stick to my screen here for a little bit. Pin video. Okay, here we go. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do in this episode. I'm gonna kick it off with a book that maybe one of our new listeners might enjoy. This is Transformers and My Little Pony: Friendship in Disguise. All right, synopsis for this one here. When Queen Chrysalis casts a spell looking for more changelings, she accidentally interferes with a malfunctioning space bridge. What's this mean for our favorite fillies? There are suddenly a bunch of Autobots and Decepticons in Equestria. All right, from IDW. I saw this pre-pandemic, and I was super excited to see that on the list. Then the pandemic hit, and then it kind of got delayed. I was actually getting worried to see if this was actually going to still come out or not. And it is. This is a 5-issue miniseries. Doing the crossover that nobody asked for, but I'm so glad that they did. Transformers and the My Little Pony. So yeah, what we have here is we have the evil Queen Chrysalis, who is kind of opening up this portal, while at the same time Megatron is also doing a similar thing in his world. And basically both things kind of cross over, and we get Autobots and My Little Pony together in one giant story. Now, for anyone just thinking this is ridiculous and why are they doing this, this is dumb. The first page, we open up on Equestria, and we have a pony that is at a newsstand reading an issue of Daring Do, which is meeting up with the Power Ponies. So it's some fictional story within this My Little Pony comic, and it reads, "See, this is why these nonsense crossover stories shouldn't even happen. What continuity is this even supposed to take place in? If Dr. Caballerson still has his castle, then this should be before Daring Do has the Sapphire Skull." And then the person at the newsstand just goes, "I think it's just supposed to be fun." And that is basically the explanation for this book. This is just supposed to be fun. And it was extreme fun. There's a lot of good humor in here as you see the ponies and the Autobots basically figure out what each of the other one is. There's a pretty fun scene that once they realize that the Autobots and the good My Little Pony characters are both on the same side, Bumblebee says to, I think, Twilight Sparkle, yep, well, we're from the planet Cybertron, but we're happy to blend in to avoid scaring anyone. And you see the transforming into the car, and then Bumblebee goes, "Does this help?" Like, well, not really, but almost every pony here wouldn't judge you for being different. So it's just kind of funny. They're just kind of playing that into the story there. But you see Megatron basically will have nothing of this. And but yeah, this is the crossover that nobody saw coming. And it was super fun for this first issue. It will be a 5-issue crossover. And much like the Ninja Turtles and Batman, I already want to see this in an animated movie because I think this would be a lot of fun. So that is my review for Transformers and My Little Pony: Friendship in Disguise #1.
You could have let
And
Jim.
not to give away, not to do too many spoilers here, but Megatron turns into a brony, right?
Well,
how it
there
ends
are
up.
4 more issues in this, and we'll just leave it at that. I don't want to. Yeah, that'll be the tease.
All right. Well, I guess we'll make that more of a prediction than
Yeah,
an actual spoiler.
We'll touch back in with the series at the end of it. So now, from My Little Ponies to probably the exact opposite of My Little Ponies, Damon, what's your title?
Little girl, picky nose.
Oh well, okay, that's still kind of on brand.
Yep. No, I've read the second deluxe edition hardcover of Saga. This collects issues 19 through 36. It's written by Brian K. Vaughan, and the art is done by Fiona Staples. And everyone in the forums that I belong to said that Saga is one of like their favorite storylines, that it's a great storyline. And I read the first book and I was hooked. And I had some free time this week and I ripped through this thing in I think 2 sittings. I couldn't put it down. It still remains probably in my top 5 favorite series. It's just great. It's really like a Star Wars meets Romeo and Juliet. It's basically great. For those that don't know, basically there's 2 planets that absolutely hate each other. One of them have horns, the other has wings. And the whole universe has been forced to take sides and fight against those that took sides with the other. And somehow one horn and one wing fell in love and had a kid. The kid is an abomination, and pretty much everyone wants him killed. So story is basically what happens to the girl, the family, the father, the wife, what they do to try and stay alive, keep their family together. And I really don't want to say anything more than that because there is so many twists and turns in this story. But there's all kinds of creatures, different alien races. The art is pretty good. It is adult. There is nudity. There is bad language. There's a planet called, I can't even really say what the planet is called. It's fun. There's a lot of action. There's violence. I'm trying to find a good page to show. I don't even really want to do that because everything in here is like one big spoiler.
Yeah, there might be like 3 pages out of 20 that are actually good for a family-friendly podcast.
Well, it's not that obscene. It's not like that at all.
Some of it is.
The Saga first page, a lot of the first pages of each issue was always the exciting thing to get. Like when I was picking it up at the store and going through the stack and they're ringing it up and everything, I'd always just pick up Saga and just go to right away to the first page because it's usually something very offensive.
Yeah, they don't hold back. You will see. It's not too much of a spoiler, but you even see creature pleasuring themselves, and that's just one page. But there's so much to it. It's a blast. I'm really loving it. It's how many? I'm assuming Jim and both Anthony have read this. Has anyone else read Saga?
I've read it.
Okay, and what is
I'm 3 or 4 volumes in.
Okay, and what's everybody's consensus on it? How do you guys like it?
I think it's a perfect comic book series.
Yeah, it's great. If I ever have time, I'm going to go back and read the rest of it. But it's one of those that's out there now, and I don't want to start and then stop. So I want to wait until I have time to read a lot of it all at once.
Right.
Katie?
I love it. This is a standout comic series for me in my mind. I really can't wait for the next issue. there's so much great things about it. All I can say is, like, I would get the trades from the library, and I would sit down and read each trade, like, in a whole night, and just back to back picking those up. They're phenomenal. I love it so much. It's so crazy. It's so weird, and it's just incredible. Just an amazing scope, and the creativity. But it's very creative. Definitely creative, one way or another, that these people express is amazing. And it's such a wonderfully visualized world. And yeah, the first pages of each volume are pretty hilarious, actually, to open up to. But I think it's great. I can't wait for what's coming next.
Yeah, Fiona Staples just pretty much given free reign to just create the most absurd, original, crazy stuff. And yeah.
Yeah, it's great. There's 54 issues right now, and you can get them in trades, or there's 3 hardcovers. But they both, Brian and Fiona, said that the whole series is going to be 108 issues. So there's going to be another 54, and they haven't started releasing yet. And I'm afraid, I mean, book 2 ended with a jaw dropper, and I really want to pick up book 3 and read it. But I've heard that book 3 also ends on a cliffhanger, and who knows how long it's going to be till the next issue comes out, so I'm almost afraid to read it. But I keep reading this, and all I keep thinking about is, man, this would make a great TV series. And I know they originally said that the reason they did this is they wanted to do something that they couldn't do in a show or movie. However, that has since changed. Brian Vaughn has entered into a very large, I think they said it was 8-figure deal with Legendary Pictures. And one of the first projects he's doing is he's turning Y the Last Man into a TV show. And it's rumored that he might actually turn Saga into a TV show, which I can't wait.
Yeah, when the series first came out, everyone wanted, much like a lot of the independent comics and stuff, everybody wanted to buy up the rights, and they were very upfront with just saying, we don't want to do, or we're making the comic book, and they wanted the period where it exists as a comic book, going back to what you said about, getting technologically in that place to where you can pull off the kind of visuals and stuff, but yeah, he's definitely... they would have the new Game of Thrones on their hand if they did.
Oh.
And we like to do this every time Damon brings a volume of Saga. We want to kind of fact check here at the Crimson Cowl Comic Club and see if everything he was saying in his review, as well as everyone else who has read it, if we were lying at all. So I have the lying cat right here.
I have the same one up there, and he said I wasn't lying, so I'll take that.
Okay, so here we go. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything. Must be all true.
Yeah.
What's that? Okay, so yeah. Anything else to say about Saga, or are we good?
No, I mean, it so far out of everything I read, it's great. It receives my highest recommendation. For anyone who I think there's something in there for everyone. Whatever brought you to comics, you'll find it in that story.
Yeah, once they announce their return date, I'm just going to binge read everything and pace it out to when it comes out again, just to be caught back up in the moment. So,
yep.
Yeah, and I think I've said before, Saga for me is one of those things where I keep hearing great things about it, and I mean to pick it up, and then I never get to it. Now it sounds like, I don't know, maybe I should just wait a little bit longer so that I don't have that cliffhanger that I have to wait on for who knows how long.
Hearing that they're planning to go to 108, I'm like, I hope they actually finish the comic before they start production on a TV show or movie series, because I'd hate to have them put pressure on themselves to write something that they weren't ready to write just to stay ahead of the production schedule.
Yeah, and it's kind of exciting, too, to think that if they're going to 108, we're at the halfway point. They've given us the Sa. We're just waiting for the Ga.
We also don't want a Game of Thrones thing where, they do a TV show and then they finish the TV show before the
exactly
series is done.
The Kick-Ass comic was a huge hit. And the movie was done filming before they finished 6 issues of the comics.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was like way ahead of it. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we saw the movie before we saw it, or it was just around the same time. But the movie was way ahead of schedule then. So okay, well, move on to our next title, David.
All right, so finally got around to reading Young Justice number 15. I think I've had this for a couple of weeks, and I just haven't gotten to it. And it seems like a really long time since I read the last issue. And with my not continuing on and reading new comics and spending some time doing back issues, this will probably be the last issue for me. So fortunately, they wrap up some of the stuff that they've been doing. Unfortunately, it leads into other things that ends on a question that I'd like an answer to. But one of the notable things about this issue in all this is, of course, they've slowly been adding more and more characters to it. And I know I've said in the past in reviewing this that I was wondering if they would continue to add, if they would keep these characters around that they've been adding to it, or once this is all done, are they going to go back to more of a select few like the original members? And that answer is more or less answered, or that question is more or less answered in this, with the big reveal that they would now call themselves, Tim Drake's not the only one who's had a name change. They've had a name change to their team also. In the original series, they actually, I don't think they even had a name. They never really called themselves Young Justice. In this, they have just acknowledged that, we're Young Justice. However, in this one, they make a little change to their name, and they are now officially, if you can read that on there, Young Justice League.
Oh, okay.
They're keeping all of these members, so it's going to be a large group. So I don't know how they're going to work this out, if they're going to do something where they're dividing it up and you'll get certain characters doing certain missions or what it is. But they've got a large league of Young Justice characters now. So this is kind of the Justice League for all the Wonder Comics characters.
Well, I don't think they have to worry too much about what they're going to be doing, because I've heard that Young Justice is one of the titles that DC has canceled.
Is it? I see. I haven't heard a lot of the details on what's going on. So maybe it is. Maybe this is actually the last issue for a lot of people. I'm not sure. With the cancellations, if there are things that are done, I'm sure there might be a few other issues that come out. I don't know how they're working it all. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with DC overall with all the changes. I know the news just came out as far as the DC Universe app, and all the shows will be going to, what's it, HBO, whatever.
Max.
Yeah, HBO Max. DC Universe will be strictly comics. All the firings that have gone on, which are not just some of the names that we know, but all the behind the scenes people who have lost their jobs. It really makes you wonder what all is going on, how much was affected by the pandemic and the changes, things with the changes with distribution, with Diamond and all that. How did that all kind of come into play and affect DC as a whole, and Warner Brothers as a whole?
And the fact that all happened when next weekend will be the DC Fandom, the celebration of everything DC. So great time.
Just in time.
Yeah, it's not good.
So,
Overdressed.
in some ways, this is a good time for me to be taking the break from the new stuff that I've opted to take. But for those of you who had planned on continuing on with new comics. Then things are kind of up in the air for all the DC readers, and we'll see how that affects other companies. With less DC stuff, how will that affect Marvel? How will that affect all the indie companies? So I'm sure it's going to have some sort of an effect on the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and I know like Marvel had done it, when the comics were coming back, where some went to digital only, but then now they are printing some of those, and like the Empyre tie-ins, they cut like those in half. So I think early on they had made some cuts, but I think they told the Marvel staff, like anyone that did let go, that they were going to be brought back if things got better, when things get better, things like that. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I have a question about that. Did Marvel or DC take any of the PPP Paycheck Protection Program loans? Because I had thought that if you took that money and in order to have it be like forgiven or given a grace period, you had to hire people on. So did they, and how does that work?
Yeah, I haven't
You
heard.
had to maintain payroll for within a certain percentage of what you signed on at.
Okay.
Yeah.
For 90 days.
Had to go towards payroll. It didn't have to go to hiring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it
So
had to.
that makes sense, I guess. So like Marvel could
had to
conceivably
maintain,
have taken those and laid people off.
Yeah, you had to maintain like 90% of your payroll for 90 days or something. I forgot the exact percentage, but you had to maintain it for 90 days. And if you didn't maintain that, and it's still not absolutely 100% sure on whether it's going to be forgiven or not.
Right.
But there was a schedule on if you did not maintain it, you would definitely have to repay at whatever.
Yeah, I know that people had
prorated rate was.
Are already remaking payments on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know how that all worked, because some of it was small business.
Yep.
And so I don't know what the differences and the rules are between small businesses. And
that's cool.
yeah, DC is not a small business. Although I've said before, by small
certainly
business,
AT&T
we're
is
not
not.
talking about the small mom and pop single owner or partnership places like us. We weren't affected by any of that because we have no employees. But I don't know what the differences are in the deals between like small business and then the big business.
I thought it was just for the small business, and the big businesses that took it in the beginning were giving it back. That's what I heard.
Some did.
Yeah.
So I think there's still a lot of confusion on how it worked and who owes what.
Yeah.
They just took the one for the bar maybe 2-3 weeks ago finally, because they were confused with how it all worked. So.
At any rate, I was happy to see Young Justice make a comeback. And so even though I'm stepping away from things for a bit, it is sad to hear that it's leaving now. And I'm hoping that these characters don't disappear, for very long.
All right, we'll jump over to Kirby with his title here.
I have the first 3 issues of Mrs. Deadpool and the Howling Commandos. This relates to Anthony's action figure from last week that he had with Jeff the Land Shark.
Yeah, Shikla, the character I said, I don't know where she's from, and then Kirby has her entire collection, apparently. So.
Yeah, I had this lined up last week before I seen the action figure, and it just happened to work out that way. But the multiverse, Secret Wars, the multiverse was destroyed. The heroes of Earth 616 and Earth 1610 were powerless to save it. Now all that remains is Battle World, a massive patchwork planet composed of the fragments of worlds that no longer exist, maintained by the iron will of its god and master, Victor Von Doom. Each region is a domain unto itself. Blah, blah, blah. More importantly, Deadpool died. But Deadpool's dead. He narrates the story to start out with. Basically, him and Shikla are in love, but at the same time, she's with Dracula. So Deadpool and Dracula fight it out. Dracula says he's not going to use no special powers, but lies, decapitates Deadpool, destroys him enough where he can't regrow or anything, and then has one of his henchmen haul Deadpool off to stick him in an acid bath in a coffin and toss him in the ocean. So that should definitely end Deadpool. And you get like the Invisible Man gets beat up really badly. That's him there. The little blood things are all the cuts that he has on his body. He's just bleeding from. And the Howling Commandos kill the Invisible Man off for being a traitor. Yeah, the whole group there. The Man-Thing, the Invisible Man, the Werewolf, the Mummy, the Marcus, the Minotaur. He's got like kinds of powers. Plus, he's got a symbiote skin. Frankenstein, of course, and Man-Thing just touches the Invisible Man, and of course, he bursts into flames if you get touched by Man-Thing. Shikla's two brothers got killed. They didn't really say how they got killed, or I missed it. But she wants to go spread their ashes so she can find the other half of a scepter so she can kill Dracula herself and try and save Deadpool. She can make it back in time. But they go on a journey into hell and search for the scepter pieces and find some other things out about each other. And Howling Commandos are set up through Dracula to kill Shikla, and it's a fun story. It's really got me into it, but sadly, I finished off the third one, and still more to come. So I got to get the next 2 or 3, whatever they had. I don't know how big this run was, but
Yeah, that might be pretty limited because that was during the summer of like 2015 for Secret Wars. So whatever mini series they had, there's probably not going to be out there.
Maybe a 5 issue. But yeah, that was my first introduction to Deadpool's wife after you showed me the figures. So
Okay, sounds good. Let's jump over to Katie.
All right, thank you. So this week I have another epic collection. It is the New Republic Volume 4. So we've actually spoken at length about this subject a few times, and I decided that I had to read it. I couldn't wait, and I bought a digital copy. Just to recap, this is the Thrawn trilogy, made famous by Timothy Zahn's books, and they did it in comic book form. So, we've talked about the story a lot, so I'll just talk about what I enjoyed about it. First of all, I really enjoyed seeing the story visualized one way or another. That was really cool. And reading it digitally with Comixology and their zoom and their transition features, it almost made it like I was watching like an animated cartoon movie. And that was really cool. Just kind of putting it together in my head that way. I really liked that. Let's see. So there's 3 volumes in one, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. And I liked the art in Heir to the Empire a little bit less than the other 2. It was kind of abstract, and I would have just enjoyed seeing it detailed more. Still nothing wrong with it. Very good technically, just not normally the style I was looking for. Quite enjoyed the art on the other 2, though. I love these characters. I am deeply, deeply passionate about them. I do feel like they're paring down some detail from the books to make these into comics, and I do quite enjoy that detail. So it was cool to see that transition. Something I quite liked, though, is that all of the dialogue comes from the books. So they were not, summarizing or rewriting anything. As far as I can tell, it was all taken from the books. So that was very cool. I really appreciated that from an adaptive aspect. And it was so good. I read this whole thing in one night. Like, it would normally be 445 pages. I think I sat and read for like 6 hours, and it was worth it, just amazingly worth it. I loved it, loved that immersion. I really enjoyed seeing these books come to life. I had actually read the Heir to the Empire comic before I read the book. And now that I've read all the books, able to compare, contrast those two experiences was really beneficial because I enjoyed it a lot more having read the books and knowing the characters in the story. Not to say that you can't, I just found it more enjoyable. So definitely worth picking up if you like Star Wars. If you're interested in the expanded universe, these are the stories that really kicked that off and rejuvenated it. All around solid buy, definitely worth the money. I am on the hunt for a paper copy that is at a reasonable price because I really do want to have this in my hands, and reading on a phone is just not that comfortable, to be honest. It was great. I have nothing else to say about it. Everyone should go buy it. That is Star Wars Epic Collection, The New Republic, Volume 4.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Jim.
All right, I have one of the series I picked up from the comic yard sales over by David, and this is Batman Hollywood Night. It is an Elseworld title from 2001. This is a set in 1948. A rich man, Byron Wyatt, has bought the rights to make the Batman comic book series into serialized movies. And he starts up a new production company, a new studio called Gotham Studios, and he starts cranking out a weekly Batman short movie, and these are going gangbusters. He draws the ire of the boss of Arkham Pictures, named Jack Napier, and who wants to shut him down and acquire the rights for himself. He can't buy him back from Bob Kane, who is happy with the arrangement he's made with Byron. And in these movies, Byron himself plays Batman. His friend, Rob, who is also a middle-aged man who is his stunt coordinator, plays Robin. And they fall afoul of Jack Napier, whose nickname happens to be the Joker. Although he does not like that nickname, when people call him that, he threatens to kill them. So Jack Napier sets Mr. Winter, who is a thug from the Winter Gang, to take care of Byron Wyatt and get him out of the picture so that he can buy the rights back and make these movies himself. They set up a thing out in the desert, and they make a big explosion, and everybody's killed except for Byron Wyatt, who is dragged from the scene of this burning ghost town into a silver mine out in the desert by an old prospector named Al Penny. He takes care of him, he brings him back to health, and when he wakes up, Byron Wyatt forgets that he is Byron Wyatt and instead thinks that he really is Bruce Wayne, the Batman, and he sets out on a crusade to get vengeance for everything that happened out in the desert. And he goes ahead and does it. And it was a really, it's a 3-volume series. Here they see Al Penny on his horse bringing the wounded Batman back.
I wonder how much that horse is worth. If it's worth enough for Penny or not. So.
And here is Batman finding Robin in the clutches of the gangsters. Yeah, so it was, for the bargain price I got it over there, it was a really cool Elseworlds title that I had not ever looked at before, and I was glad to pick it up. There's a special bonus in this book that I'm waiting for Kurt to come around so I can cut out and get my free Snickers bar.
Ooh, yeah, there we go. Introducing Snickers Cruncher. Yummy.
Yeah, there you go. So 3 books, whole story, Great buy I picked up, though. Hollywood Night with a
All
K.
right. Okay, my next title here, I talked about issue number 1. This is now the issue 4 of 6, I believe. This is Alienated number 4. This is from Boom Studios. The overall idea of this book is that we have 3 very unrelated students. They're not friends at all, but they have one thing in common: their name. There's a Sam, there's a Samantha, and there's a Samir. They're all Sams. And they all happen to cross paths and stumble across in the woods this mysterious nest, alien nest, cocoon, egg thing in the tree. They do what any kid would do and start poking it. And throughout this series, basically this little alien egg baby unravels from there, and it kind of gives them this interconnectability to speak to each other telepathically. And what they're able to do throughout these issues, each issue almost focuses on each of the kids' individual problems. They all come from different backgrounds. They're all dealing with their own personal issues as, young high school students. And once they start kind of seeing what each of the other kids going through, it kind of connects them in a way. It allows them to want to help each other. This series, I didn't really know what was going to be. The initial premise was enough for me to jump on, and it's took a surprising turn come issue number 4, where it got very serious. It dealt with a lot of real world type issues for anybody, and most importantly for young people as well. But this alien, who they later named Chip is kind of allowing them to kind of use some of its powers to kind of get them what they want. So if they wanted like an ice cream cone, then boom, there it is through a little portal. But Chip's even able to do some crazier things. And issue number 4 is dealing with our Samir character. And they're all kind of borrowing. It's almost like it's the classroom pet in a way between the 3, where they each kind of have their turn taking care of Chip. But they all kind of use Chip for their own kind of personal gain. And Samir's issue here deals with basically creating a portal and finding Samir's dad, who we later find out is someone who left Samir and Samir's mother as he was a young child. And Samir is kind of using this to kind of taunt and torture his deadbeat dad, basically. And this book just took a really crazy turn, and we see the other kids, because they're all connected through this alien. We see the other kids kind of seeing this unfold and realize that Samir may be in very serious trouble, and they have to do what they can to help him, while he has kind of gotten power hungry with this weird alien entity here. So yeah, Alienated, really, really good story. Like I said, I was just expecting some crazy, fun, wacky alien story, but they've really dealt with a lot of big and real emotions in this series. So yeah, I'm very much anticipating the final 2 issues. This was Alienated, issue number 4. Next up, Damon.
My next pick was a Kickstarter. One of the first Kickstarters I jumped in on, and it is called Rising Rebels. It is kind of like a swamp bog monster, so I figured it'd be right up your alley, Anthony, because you're a fellow Man-Thing friend. This is primarily, the story is written by Jay Photos. I know I'm bad with names, and Mark Kidwell. They worked a lot on like 68, which was the Vietnam zombie stories. And the art is also by Jay Photos and Jeff Zornow. This is a hard one to describe. There's like 3 stories going on in here at once. But it was a fast read. It's like 128, 130 some pages. Basically, the first part of the story takes place during the Civil War. The Civil War is over, but there are some rebels that just won't give up the fight. And one of them, the bad one, is a lieutenant. His name is Knox. So the Union sent squads to try and kill this guy. He was a bad one. He really got off on like murdering all kinds of people, even innocent women and children. And they tracked him down to swampland, and they killed him underneath the tree that he hung so many people on. And of course, bad things happen. I'm not going to go give you any more on that, but he actually will be the one that's rising, coming back. You can kind of, it's a bad picture, but you can kind of see that's his head. And he's now like this swamp creature monster thing. The other story is what's taking place in that part of the world in present day, or in the 80s, so to speak. The plantation has been bought by a private company, and they're sending their engineers down. They're going to like make it a golf course or something. But it was on the edge of this plantation where this tree was in the Civil War that they killed this lieutenant. And while that's going on, we come to today, present day, where a son is going through all his dad's old stuff from when he was a kid. All his old toys, all his old VHS movies, and that's where he comes across a VHS tape called Rising Rebels. And when they pop it in, it's actually watching the story from the 80s as a horror movie. And there's more to that later. But basically, this engineer is down there and bad things happen. I can't go into how that all comes about, but there's some witches involved. Some bad things go down, and the army of the dead rises, led by Colonel Knox. One of the coolest things in here is some of the artwork, the way they make them look, and the grisly attacks. For instance, here you can see Knox in the background, but what he's doing to this guy, it is very graphic, violent, and bloody. In fact, one of the cool things is when you get killed, you kind of become part of the creature. And, you know, it doesn't matter what part you are. For instance, here is a head with its eyes popped up, walking off with the vines. And one of the cool things I like is this little balloon right here, which will say, "Thank you, John Carpenter and Rob Bottin. You rule," our crew. So that's a little tip off to, if you've ever seen the movie The Thing, where you had the spider head walking off. They kind of recreated that. Great story. They kind of, the way they end it, I mean, it's all kinds of creatures and bad things coming out of the swamp, and you can't really kill them. It's very violent, very graphic, and it was fun the way it ended, because it kind of ends, and then you see what happens to the father and son that were watching this horror movie, so to speak, and then it gives you 2 possible sequels and the additional stories and chapters, which were part of the Kickstarter. You know, if they received so much funding, they do 2 additional chapters, and that's included in here. And some of like the cover art for the individual issues they released was very good. And so this trade paperback contains the whole story, the additional chapters, a lot of special features on the making of. A big part of this was 80s nostalgia. So you see a lot of tips to the 80s stuff. One of the perks, like you get like the "Be Kind, Please Rewind" that you used to see on the old 80s stuff. You get a pin set I got.
And even that sticker's peeled over on that one image.
Yep. The bookmark they included looks like the side box of a VHS.
Oh, that's cool.
It has on the bottom. and it's double-sided. One of the perks to the Kickstarter was you also got like a hand-drawn sketch and signature card.
Sweet.
I checked. There are ways you can still get this. If you go to J Photo's website, he is selling the signed trade paperback for $30, free shipping. It's a little pricey for a trade, but if you're into horror and bloody violence and swamp creatures and everything that comes with it, I mean, it's a good time.
Yeah, it looks like it checks all the boxes there.
I mean, they don't leave nothing to the imagination. They rip the skin off and show you everything underneath. It was fun. It's a good old horror comic.
It's
So,
fun.
If you're into that, I'd recommend Rising Rebels. If you're not into horror comics or you don't like blood, do not pick this up. And this is one of the more bloodier books that I've read. But it was fun. That's Rising Rebels.
That would have been a great blurb on the cover of the trade is, you see under the skin. It's fun. Damon.
Yeah, there you go.
Alrighty. All right. Next up, we have David.
Let's try that again. All right.
Dramatic pause.
The only way that you can follow up Damon is by forgetting to unmute. Okay, so I got The Amazing Spider-Man Masterworks Volume 1. This collects Amazing Fantasy number 15, along with the first 5 issues of the original volume of Amazing Spider-Man. And I just kind of started reading it. I've only gotten through the first couple issues on this because at the same time I'm going back and reading some other classic greats. But I thought I'd bring this one today and probably bring one of the others to the table as it is next week. But it's, even though I've read these before, it's always interesting to me to go back and reread these earliest examples of some of my favorite characters. To read the first stories, first appearance of Spider-Man when it was thought that this would be the only appearance of Spider-Man, because it was just the last issue of a dying comic, and Stan thought, well, I'll just take a shot at it. So you go through and you read these and you notice all the differences, in the characters. There's very clear differences in the artwork and how comic book artwork has changed over the years, from what we have here until now, but also the writing, but not just that, but how the characters have changed, how things have been added to the origins as we go on through the years. So in this case, you got Peter Parker, and it's just interesting, how many times you've revisited this origin, but this is the original, and you see all the different things that have been picked out of it for movie versions and cartoon versions and everything else. So we've got all the classic stuff here, the spider bite, the wrestling gig, where at first he's just wearing the webbing over his head. They show him develop the web shooters and the costume and go out and do this. And there's things that you don't always remember, like, well, at the very beginning, he was kind of a celebrity. And everybody knew who Spider-Man was because he did all these appearances, and there weren't a bunch of people like him around. And it wasn't until he upstaged the son of J. Jonah Jameson that he became, such a public menace. And that story is all in here, how he went to save this test rocket that JJ's son was piloting, and it had a problem, and Spidey saved it. But of course, there's no hero greater than the heroes like J. Jonah Jameson's very own son. So guys like Spider-Man, he's just a menace. He probably sabotaged the thing just so that he could save the day, and that was the take on him. But the other thing that I'd kind of forgotten about that I enjoyed going back and looking at was how even after Uncle Ben got killed, Spider-Man had still considered, doing some not legal things with his powers and everything to make money. He could see how Aunt May was broke and desperate, and she's selling off her jewelry and stuff like that, and he wanted to help. So he still wanted to cash in on the whole Spidey thing, until old JJ kind of put the kibosh on that by making him such a public menace that he couldn't show his face, so to speak. He couldn't. They show him trying to do something, and he wants to keep his identity, so he gets the check made out to Spider-Man. And even though he's warned against it, he still tries to go to the bank, but he's got no way to prove that he's Spider-Man, so he can't cash the check. So it's useless. And that's like the last check that he got for anything beside, before being, turned into this public menace. So after that, he couldn't even try. There was just nothing left to do. But in the end, it all works out. We start with the early issues. The first Amazing Spider-Man story, we see him thinking, I know what I can do. I can go join the Fantastic Four. I can get paid for being Spider-Man. Until he realizes that, well, they don't actually get paid for what they do. They're a nonprofit organization and this and that. And he kind of gives up. So you see very early on the old Parker luck and how everything that he tries to do, he fails at, except stopping the bad guys. So Spider-Man is born. For anybody who hasn't read the early issues, I recommend going back and just seeing what things were like back then, and the writing and the art and the differences to the character and everything. Go back and enjoy some wheat cakes with Aunt May. And I'd recommend that, to anybody who has read the stuff. Go back and revisit it from time to time, because it's really enjoyable to go back and do that. So I'm enjoying this time of going back, enjoying these early issues. Superman is the other thing. I'm going back and reading all the way back to Golden Age and starting there to the early beginnings of some of these characters. So anyways, that is volume 1 of The Amazing Spider-Man Masterworks.
Now, you kept mentioning Peter Parker, but I remember that as Peter Palmer back in the day.
You're absolutely correct. There is a
it was like one panel, right?
There is, and you know what? I think because I'm familiar with that, I didn't even think anything of it when I read it. But he is actually misnamed as Peter Palmer. You're absolutely right. And then he becomes Peter Parker. So,
the old Palmer luck, huh?
Yeah.
One thing, a little show and tell that's related to the Amazing Fantasy 15 is an original signed copy. Wait, no, that's not it. Is this awesome statue I got like 15 years ago, which has taken the Amazing Fantasy cover and this awesome 3D presentation. It's presented on a stack of comic books. When you look at it this way, it's got a little frame stand there, which I never do because it's super heavy and I just know it would fall and break, so I keep it pretty low to the ground. But yeah, it's there's just this awesome recreation of that cover, so figured that was a good time to mention that and pair it with Amazing Fantasy 15.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
it's very nice. I like it. Cool 3D art too. Turned out really well.
This was number 447 of 1,500, so I have to get all of the other ones yet, so I have them all.
Complete collection, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to be one of those completists.
That's what that means, right? I got to get all those.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next up, Kirby.
All right. If you want a little information, get more of the story about Wolverine and Sabretooth. I just happened to pick a stack of comics that for some reason all kind of work together, and it's the mostly newer age with a couple true believers. And the first one I'm going to talk about is True Believers Wolverine Evolution. In this one, you get the main story of why Wolverine and Sabretooth hate each other so much, and with Sabretooth being a killer and attacks Wolverine's girlfriend at the time and possibly kills her and does other things to her, and you find out why Wolverine hates him so much because of it. That's a good one to go back to, and these are dollar comics, the True Believers that they keep bringing out, and that'll give you a nice little origin. And then I also have a True Believers Deadpool that I decided to check out, and this one I'll give you a little quick synopsis. Avenger, assassin, superstar, smelly person, possibly the world's most skilled mercenary, definitely the world's most annoying. Wade Wilson was chosen for a top secret government program that gave him a healing factor, allowing him to heal from any wound. Somehow, despite making his money as a gun for hire, Wade has become one of the most beloved heroes in the world. Call him the Merc with the mouth, call him the regenerating degenerate, call him Deadpool. In this one, Wade remembers something about Sabretooth back in the day, killing his girlfriend, all his family, and then he recalls that he killed them, and it goes back and forth, and you end up finding out who did what towards the end of the story. I don't want to give all that away, but he comes across some issues with Sabretooth in here, and it's a great way of finding out more information about why Sabretooth is such a murderer, why everybody hates him so much. And then they had Origin 1 back in the day, and they recently came out with Origin 2. And in here, it was 1907. It was the end of the age of the great empires of steam, the clock of mankind ticking towards dreadful war. The entirety of the civilized world knew it. The mistake of the civilized man being to believe his world was the world entire. This is a story about how a civilized man came to know of another world and the man who lived there. This is a story about that man, one called Logan, who had chosen to live far away from the civilization and those who disturbed him. It is the story of wolves and bears. It is a story of animals. I have the first two here. The first one gets into a deep story about Wolverine living with some wolves, and you get to see basically a story about survival, feeding your family, taking care of your loved ones, not worrying about the ones outside of your loved ones that are starving, and not sharing or caring about them at all, and just living your days happily thinking everything's all right. And then one day you hear a scream and you find out that something's happening with the rest of the family while you're out on a hunt. And there's all kinds of graphic images in here for animals being slaughtered and stuff, but it is a good, strong story. And in the beginning, when there's a polar bear, why there's a polar bear in the woods, you don't understand, but you notice a little chip on his nose, so you know he's coming from some type of scientific lab and doesn't belong in that area. But it's a good, strong storyline about life and death and what happens when you gotta just try and survive. And then the second one goes in to where there's a group of hunters trying to track down Wolverine, and they find the whole den and everything that happened. And one of the head trackers just happens to be Sabretooth. And I want to read the rest of the storyline and find out where it goes, but it looks like it's going to be another strong battle between Wolverine and Sabretooth coming up in there. Then you got the death of Wolverine, the Logan Legacy set that they brought out. Logan the Wolverine is dead, but not everyone knows it. Word has been spreading slowly, but no one's sure what's true and what's rumor. The Wolverine is a legend, and the legends live forever. In this one, you got a cage that's just collecting all these characters. These few people are bringing them in and throwing them in the cage, and it just happens to be like Wolverine's son, Dagon. You got X-23. What's her name with the really long fingers?
Lady Deathstrike.
Yeah, Lady Deathstrike's in there. Sabretooth's in there. Then a character that plays himself out to be Professor Xavier. It ends up, in the long run, becoming Mystique towards the end. But this is an interesting storyline. They're put together, and they're set to help hunt and search for Wolverine and find out where his body parts are, and there's people there trying to collect the body parts. And so, of course, I got the first 2 issues of that, and there's more to that one also.
Yeah, there was a couple. There was a couple mini series for that where it just kind of took all of these different groups of people that had a connection to Logan, and I've read a couple of them. I didn't read that one, but I read a couple of the other ones, and they were really good. So
the ones I'm talking about here are probably most of them, because all the characters kind of crossed over through all of them. And this one is the Wolverines, which Logan met his end while destroying a revamped version of the Weapon X project, located in a facility known as Paradise, led by Dr. Abraham Cornelius, the man responsible for infusing Wolverine's body with the unbreakable adamantium that coated his skeleton and claws. Logan could not escape, but others did. 5 of Cornelius's test subjects all granted strange new powers. Shogun, ex-soldier, fused with the spirit of the deadly demon ninja Ogun. Nero, a brilliant psychopath. Endo, a troubled speedster. Scala, immensely strong, but physically addicted to violence. And Junk, with abilities related to animal traits, activated his genes. None were ever intended to survive outside Paradise and have been infused with a ticking clock in their DNA that will kill them unless it can be deactivated. These lost weapons kidnapped a group of 5 of Wolverine's deadliest associates, including Mystique, Sabretooth, Lady Deathstrike, Daken, and X-23, in the hope that their healing factors might hold the key to saving the test subjects' lives. The refugees from Paradise hold significant leverage over the 5 killers' secret control words that can manipulate, sedate, or even kill each of them. A deal was struck with the test subjects, agreeing to release Mystique and the others in exchange for their help. But first, the 2 teams undertake a mission towards the goal that could save both groups from extinction. And they're them and what are they called? The Roadblock and all them. I can't think of it now. The road crew guys, I can't. But anyways, they come across them, and these guys are hunting for Wolverine's body, and they're trying to find a package. They don't know what it is, but they end up coming across Wolverine, just the adamantium body just sitting there all melted and under a bunch of rubble and stuff. And then other characters show up, and they're all happy to see what they found, even though it wasn't what everybody was searching for. But they'll take that as also to help them out with whatever they're doing in the future. But of course, that's issue number 1. There's going to be more to that. And then I'm sure Hunt for Wolverine was one that you're thinking of. And this what's that?
That one I read, the Adamantium Agenda.
Yep. Years ago, Wolverine was part of a team of Avengers with Iron Man, Spider-Man, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones. Today, Wolverine's body is missing from its final resting place. Although Wolverine is dead, his secrets live on. But yeah, these guys are all searching for him also, and it's another good storyline. Gets you deeper and deeper into what happened with Wolverine. And yet Stark made promises, and he's wanting to make up for what he did, what him and Spider-Man couldn't do when Wolverine supposedly died. And it's an interesting storyline. Get you a little deeper in there, and then the final one is the Return of Wolverine, #1. This is like my favorite cover. I get this one framed. It's like Wolverine, a great hero, selfless, strong, brave, an X-Man, an Avenger, a steadfast friend, an implacable enemy. He was dead. Now he is not. Chapter 1, Hell. Yeah, Wolverine's just basically back, trying to figure out what happened, who he is, what he is. It goes into another Sabretooth storyline here. It takes it back to prison cells where all the characters are locked away. And he's got a scientist that he's working with. She's helping him bring back his powers and bring back his memories and stuff. It's just, again, I need more. And
Yeah, that one's a 5-issue mini, if I'm not mistaken.
yep. So yeah, they have a lot of new. These are all newer comics that are out nowadays. So the rewriting of the stories and all that, but these are all very interesting. All have me wanting more, and a lot of information about Wolverine and Sabretooth's issues between each other, and then surprisingly a lot of information about other characters related to Wolverine, because I didn't even know about Dacon. That was new to me.
Very good. All right. We'll cut over to Jim, to which he will either talk about death or glory. I'm not sure which one. We'll find out when his volume's on.
Maybe I'll talk about both.
Okay.
I'm talking about a comic called Death or Glory. This is number 11, and as you might see there, it says the final issue. I don't know why they decided on number 11 to finish it, but it finished off very well. This is by Rick Remender with art by Bengal and lettered by Russ Wooten.
Russ Wooten.
This has been a really excellent series. If I'll just kind of recap the whole thing. To begin with, it's set slightly in a future that's a little different from ours in that pretty much everybody lives on the grid except for a few strangers who, like Red, who is a trucker that lives off the grid. He has no insurance, no medical coverage at all. He falls sick and he's resorted to he's resolved to die, but his daughter Glory has decided that she's going to save him, and she decides that in order to do so, she needs money, and she's going to rob one of the trucks that her ex-husband is running drugs from. It turns out that he wasn't running drugs, he was running people from Mexico, apparently, and they weren't just being smuggled in as illegal workers, they were being smuggled in as people to supply parts for other people as part of a organ harvesting ring. And this turns out to be, they're running from the cops, they're running from the organizations, they're like all the redneck backwoods freelance truckers and everybody else that they know gets involved in this, and they're running all around the desert and trying to take Red to Mexico so he can get a liver transplant. They find a liver that he can use, and at the end they get into the tunnel leading to Mexico with the liver, and they're ahead of everybody, and then somebody finally climbs on top of the truck that they're in and ends up shooting Red, and that's the end. And while Red ends up dying, it was actually quite a nice ending because it doesn't, Glory never loses hope. Even after he dies, there's enough of a story there for her to be looking hopeful to something new. And she has, it's kind of, I think it's going to be kind of hard to see this, but this is, she goes back and she opens up her mechanic shop, and this is the last panel or last page. It zooms in. I'm going to zoom in on that. Can you read that?
Are we looking at on the sign?
The neon sign.
Something happy place, Glory's happy place.
Yeah, Glory's happy place, yes. So that's the very end of the book. Even though her dad died, in the last page, there's a little boy who's got his bike there, and she comes back from the funeral, and he goes, "Are you the mechanic? I need help with my bike." And she stops to help him with the bike, and then flips on the neon sign. So, and it's Glory's happy place. It's like, well, it was a sad that Red didn't get to have his chance at his transplant. Red was never looking for that. That was Glory's dream. She was just afraid to lose her father. Red was resigned to this being the end of his life, but he went along with it for her sake. And then to have, but to have her finally come to peace with that and go back to the life that he wanted for her and her to be happy, that was, I don't think it would have been worth spreading out to make it an even 12 issues. It just wrapped up so perfectly for this story. That,
yeah, I do kind of like that too, where he said, it could have been the even 12. You would expect the 12, but yeah, ending on 11 just kind of shows that, they had a certain story to tell, and they weren't going to flesh it out just to
exactly
reach an even number. It's like somebody having like tacos on a Wednesday instead of Taco Tuesday. So I'm hungry Wednesday.
This could be so easily made into a great movie. I mean, that would be so full of action and car chases, and you have these big vehicles running through the desert. They have like one of like super dump truck things, that's like 12 stories tall, that they have set up in there. They have a operating theater where they are actually doing the organ harvesting on this thing while it is running through the desert, and they're complaining about the bouncing and everything. And I was like, this could be such a cool movie. So I'm hopefully somebody's going to look at it and say, hey, it's a good idea.
Excellent. Okay, over to my next title here. I stumbled across this original graphic novel from the year 2011, Kidnapping, Kevin Smith. Two slackers hatch a plot to kidnap indie filmmaker Kevin Smith and attempt to force him to write an original screenplay for them. Their plan backfires on them when Smith contacts the outside world and tells everyone that he has been abducted and he's being held against his will. And the cover, as you see, both front and back, is done by Mike and Laura Allred. So, yeah, this is something that kind of, for me being a big Kevin Smith fan, me being a Mike Allred, Laura Allred fan, I had never heard about this until about a week or two ago. I had stumbled across it somehow, some way, most likely just seeing Allred's name attached to the cover. He does not do the interiors. This story here is written and drawn by Chad Blakely, who gives props to big thank you to Kevin Smith. Most likely he had had this idea, being a Kevin Smith super fan, and presented it to him. And I'm sure Kevin Smith would probably say yes to anything about anybody creating anything about him, whether it's positive or negative. He would be a big supporter.
He couldn't have made it without Kevin Smith.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it would have been maybe as maybe Kirby suggested, kidnapping Kevin James if Kevin Smith didn't want to sign on to it. So yeah, this is a short graphic novel, like 50 pages or so, kicking off at one of Kevin Smith's many 3+ hour long Q&A sessions. Fun fact, I've been at one that was, I think, 5 or 6 hours, I think, at one of the Wizard Worlds. I think his record was up to like 9 or 10 hours for a Q&A. So it's starting off with that, and these two friends who work at a comic shop who are aspiring screenplay writers, filmmakers, are kind of arguing over Kevin Smith being awesome and the other arguing that Kevin Smith sucks. And that is a theme that goes throughout the entire book, as those two eventually decide to hatch the plan to kidnap Kevin Smith and make him write a screenplay. Throughout the story, you see Kevin just kind of, not really having much of an option here, so he kind of goes with it. But at the same time, while his kidnappers go to work at the comic shop, Kevin kind of spends some of the day trying to figure out how to contact the outside world, how to break free, find out if these kidnappers are smart or not when it comes to keeping him contained within their basement. What's cool is that down the line, there's some way, I won't spoil it, but how Kevin Smith somehow gets a hold of his cell phone and is able to contact the outside world, but not wanting the kidnappers to see that he has a cell phone, so he has to go and hide it somewhere in the room. So there's a box of toys in the corner, and he hides it into the box of toys. And I don't know if it'll focus or not. This is all in black and white, but there is a Madman action figure hidden in that box of toys there, which obviously pleased me. Looking at the background, there's a lot of all red Easter eggs with Madman exclamation bolt shirts, and the figure pops up every now and then. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, it was a very quick read. You could definitely tell they're a big fan of Kevin Smith just with the referencing, knowing a lot about him, but then also just really laying in there and kind of being very playful with any criticism to Kevin's career, and something that I'm sure Kevin would agree to, because Kevin Smith will always be the first to tell you he sucks as a director, or he sucks as this or that. So I could see Kevin being very delighted to just being brought to life in this comic book. And I think the art was done pretty well. I think there's some good likeness. It's a very realistic tone. There's some pages in the back that talks about a possible cartoon approach that he was going to take, but kind of working outside of his style, but ultimately went to a realistic touch. But there's a good close-up there of 2011 era Kevin Smith there. But yeah, I think the art was pretty good. You see some changes towards the end that could just be at any fault of, it sounds like this was like a labor of love, that it maybe had taken a while to get this going. And having worked in a 48-page graphic novel medium myself, knowing that the time period of putting something like this together, you'll see some progression in art, some change in art, and things like that. So I got an idea that maybe there was some of that here, but ultimately I think it was pretty enjoyable for what it was there. I wasn't the only one that read this book this week. Kirby, you have anything to say about Kidnapping Kevin Smith?
Yeah, I liked it. It was a nice, quick, easy read, and I love how even Kevin Smith can't get out of a place on his own when he's got access to all the stuff. He's not really fully actually tied up or anything like that. He can sneak out and has his Wonder Weed bag so he can do some writing and stuff. And I like with the little fan intro later on and stuff, how they did that. Yeah, this was a fun read. It's basically like if Tell 'em Steve Dave kidnapped Kevin Smith, and so they could get rich instead of him.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that too. And You had mentioned the fan thing. I won't say too much into that, but you find, there's a certain way of the passionate Kevin Smith fans, even though one of them has, kidnapped him with the other friend. There's some other passionate fans that kind of get woven into the story that kind of really make things interesting. There's one line I wanted to point out when there are some cops who eventually start investigating what is going on. So they go into the comic shop where they suspect that these guys had something to do with it, and they're kind of poking fun at comic shops, just saying, that just a bunch of nerds and stuff like that. But they walk in, and one of them goes, "This place smells of Mountain Dew and desperation," which, that kind of does really capture that vibe so well. But yeah.
And like you said, with the all red stuff in here, Madman was mentioned twice in the comic also.
But yeah, that was pretty cool. And knowing that you see his sample cover, what he was going to do, this writer and artist did this cover. And then when he got Mike Allred on board and eventually saw this cover, that's when he realized, oh, this is how you do a cover. Allred, who does many variant covers and stuff like that. Him being in the Chasing Amy movie in the intro, so knowing that he definitely had the blessing on that way, because Mike and Kevin are friends on that level too, and Mike being the artist for the Bluntman and Chronic art, the comic books that exist within the View Askew universe and those Kevin Smith, Jay and Silent Bob movies. So it's kind of cool just to see that collaboration of Mike being thrown in there too. But yeah, I haven't heard anybody talk about this, and I just happened to stumble across it, and I'm like,
You bought the last one off of
eBay.
Amazon?
Yeah, there's only one
eBay?
eBay, and this was the very last one.
I must have got mine off of Amazon then, the last one that they had. Did you say it's from Pathetic Aesthetic Comics?
Yep, and Damon had asked me, being a fellow Kevin Smith fan as well, we just took a quick search, and Pathetic Aesthetic Comics is one of the sellers on Amazon, and they listed 2 new copies. Or 2 new listings, I should
New
say.
copies, huh?
Sure, after I get my copy, it's all
2 new listings.
well
They
used.
were in that same price range that we picked ours up for, but yeah, there was really no price gouging. I think this was normally, it says $10.95, got mine for a couple bucks more than that with shipping. So it's not something that's like, oh, it's $40 on a print or something. So, but yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was fun. So, And this is a great time to announce the inspiration that I am going to be writing and drawing a graphic novel that is called Kidnapping, Mike Allred. So look for that in stores soon. Well, we won't include that in the podcast. We'll cut that out.
I was going to say, our podcast will be shut down now. I'll be here next week.
Yeah, you know who is going to be looking for it? The FBI.
Let's just hope that Mike Allred hasn't gone missing by the time that the video portion is put up.
Let me just say, I've had a couple run-ins with the FBI before, so I will make sure I'll write a note to delete that.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you were bros with them and it'd be all good. We should get the FBI in on Kidnapping Mike Allred. Oh, no.
Hey,
Just kidding.
That's a good sequel right there. So.
Oh, that sounds good, actually. We love you, Mike. We don't want anything bad to happen to you.
He knows that if anything bad happened to me, then he's going to need a new retirement plan. So he better listen to, his audience. So. Okay, this got weird. So next up is Damon.
Okay. So this was a book I've been waiting for a while, and it was, of course, delayed because of COVID. But this is Alien. This is based on the original screenplay. The thing is this is the adaptation of Dan O'Bannon's original 1976 screenplay, which was originally titled Star Beast. The visuals, the names, designs of the ship, and the alien are based on all the descriptions that was in his screenplay, well before the involvement of H.R. Geiger, Mobius, or Ron Cobb. So even though it's going to be similar to what was in the movie, it's going to be completely different. And so that's why I was really looking forward to this. And you can tell right from the very first panel that this is something completely different. When the people, it's closer, so far the opening is closer to what was in Alien Covenant than what was actually in Alien. There's a lot more people in the crew than what was in the movie. Their names are completely different, and they're more like, they're similar in that they're just doing this job for money. They all have plans. This was their big score. They thought they were waking up coming into Earth, but they're not because they were detoured and woken up due to the distress signal. That's a lot of the same. A lot of the things that happen are kind of different. The planet is different. When you finally see the spacecraft is different. For example, here is the very first image you get to see of the actual crash spaceship. And it's not even a really clear image because they're still pretty far away. But when they get into the ship, it's kind of different than what's in the movie. It's still vast. There's still eggs, so to speak, at least I think. So far, this is all we've seen. Make sure I'm pointing to the right thing. This is what the eggs, like there's one there and there's one there, how they're being represented in this. So it is kind of different. One of the biggest changes for me, because I was a huge Alien, still am today, is the look of the engineer. When we first come into the room, and I wasn't going to show it because I thought it'd be a spoiler, but considering it's on the cover of the comic, it can't really be. But if you don't want to see it, don't turn around. It's not very descriptive. It's kind of different. But here is the captain's chair of the ship, basically, with the engineer on it. And there is a close-up of the engineer. If you're a fan of the franchise, you know what I'm talking about. And just to show that I'm not really spoiling it, there again on the cover, I'm trying to not get the glare.
Yeah, there it is.
The engineer shit. It kind of has like a real tall spike going up and like 3 sticks coming out of its head. It's completely kind of different.
It's all spiky, kind of a Game of Aliens throne thing. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's all we get. It's just a tease. All we see is that those 2 panels of the engineer and the 2 images of the egg. You're not going to see a face hugger yet. You're not going to see the alien. This is just basically the setup. The art is good. Let me try and find, like, for instance, here is what some of the humans look like to see how the art is. I think the art is pretty good. I'm horrible with names, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. So I will just show them. Dan O'Bannon, he's credited because it's his story. It's based on his screenplay from '76. The one below it, the Cristiano, whatever that is, I'm sorry, is the adaptation, the person who wrote it. And then the one underneath it, the Guilherme, he's the artist. Basically, how this first issue ends is they've gone down, they've gotten some stuff, they've come back to their ship, they decided they're going to go down and more thoroughly document, because this is going to be like a big money grab for them. You know, this is the first time actual contact with another species has ever been made, and they think they're going to strike it rich, so they're going to go back and survey the ship more, and that's where this issue ends. So everything that I'm looking forward to is going to probably be in the next issue. But if you're the only tidbit, because they're not really teasing a whole lot, all we got so far is this image of what's to come for the next issue, whatever you think that might be. The only complaint I have with this book is the advertisements. Oh my God. Every other couple pages, it's an ad for a complete, in fact, this one is a double pager. You have an ad on that page, flip it over, there's an ad for another, and oh, that is so annoying. It detracts from the story. I mean, DC usually has maybe 1 or 2 ad pages, but this book, it's by Dark Horse, I'm sorry. It seems like every couple pages, like here on this one, Spy Island, which I'm also going to be getting.
Yeah.
And then on the back side, it's a Stranger Things ad. That just...
Well, maybe publishers can start doing like a lot of these other apps are doing, where you have the one version, you pay for that and you get all the ads, but if you pay a little bit more, you get the version with no ads. So maybe they could do like a second version of comics where you buy it, it's like a $1 more, $2 more, whatever it needs to be, but then there's no ads.
I'd be okay with that. I would gladly pay the other $1 or $2 more to have it ad free.
I got to say, as someone whose likeness is soon to be printed in a Dark Horse comic book, I absolutely love all of those ads that you just showed, and I've purchased everything. So,
okay. Well, with that being said, if you're a fan of the Alien franchise, I would recommend picking this up because I have a feeling this is going to get pretty good, and it's not going to be the same story. It is going to be different. It's just like they're doing the same thing with Predator. That one was delayed, but that's going to be coming out soon. They're going to do the adaptation of the original screenplay. I'm getting the first issue just for the picture alone, because right on the cover they show what the Predator looks like, and it's completely different. That's going to be awesome. But they did the same thing with Alien 3, which I have the book hardcover up on the shelf, because the screenplay for Alien 3 and the mess we got in the movie is completely different. So the book is the better version of Alien 3. They're doing the same thing with this. I hope they keep going. I hope there was a different script for Aliens and we get an adaptation to the original screenplay. And I'm hoping if these are successful, this just opens the door to different things. Because, screenplays go through so many revisions before they actually get the final script for the movie. Just look at like Star Wars, for instance. The original screenplay George Lucas had is completely different than the end result we got. So if this is successful, I mean, this could open the doors to, comic adaptations, so you get to see 2 versions of the movie that you love.
Right. Well, you get all these different, like the original screenplay adaptation, right? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adapting like the second draft of the screenplays, because nobody's doing those, right? And if that works out, maybe I'll go into like the third version. You brought up Star Wars. I think there's probably about 50 different versions before it actually got made into a film. So you can just keep like pushing out new versions of Star Wars.
you can get the Snyder cut, everything.
Right.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Kirby, did you have anything else, or was that it for you?
That's it, unless you need something. I got 2 other ones here.
I was just making sure, because when I was reordering them, I just wanted to...
I actually have one that you'd really get a kick out of. It's Marvel Riot, just a parody comic book. And it's done by Marvel, so they actually keep all the names for all the characters.
Okay.
And so it's basically based off the Age of Apocalypse run. But you'd love that on the inside of the front and back cover, you have this board game with all your little cutout characters and all that you can cut out. And they got cutout vehicles in the back of it and stuff. But yeah, it's hilarious if you know that storyline and stuff. But I don't know all these characters in here, so I want to reread it after I've read that storyline. But yeah, it's
it looks like it's just the one issue.
That's
That's
a nice wraparound cover. So, yeah, it was a one issue, just a one shot with I think it has 3 or 4 different stories in it. But,
No, if you ask me, it looks like a Riot.
Yeah, it was a riot. A Marvel riot.
Speaking of Marvel riots, Empyre issue number 4. Okay, so the Empyre story to date, we've got the Kree and the Skrulls who were at war for a millennia. They eventually decide to join forces and team up against one of their enemies who have actually received attacks from both of those armies. The Kotati, who is a plant race people. And this plant race people is deciding to not only attack the Kree and the Skrull, but also basically all of Earth. They want to take over everything. They want to destroy all human, animal, and life and just rule everything. So the Avengers and the Fantastic Four have gotten in the middle of all of this because while some were in space, some were on Earth, they want to protect Earth. They start to align themselves with the Kree and the Skrull for a little bit there. Kree and the Skrulls are unified by Howling, who is one of the former Young Avengers, who is of the hybrid race of the Kree and the Skrulls, and he is a young leader that you're kind of getting the idea that he is. There might be something bigger happening that might be kind of pulling the strings and kind of using Howling to kind of get their way. That is part of the story. We have. I'm just going to call him Quoy. I think that's maybe how you pronounce it. It's like Quoi. He is the son of Mantis as well as Swordsman, the former Avengers villain / Avengers team member, I think.
Yes.
The Swordsman who actually eventually died and was brought back to life with this Kotati in the resemblance of the Swordsman, who then had a baby with Mantis, and that baby is now grown up to be the king of the Kotati and destroy everything. So you have Mantis and Swordsman who are kind of working to kind of calm their sun down a little bit. So
But
you've
he's
got
upset because all the vegetarians and the vegans have been like killing off his people, and
Yeah.
so he's, yeah.
You've got Emperor Howling, who has decided to take the unused accuser hammer that Ronan, who might be dead at this time, I forget. But the hammer basically is now reassigned to Carol Danvers. So she is now the ultimate Kree accuser. And she kind of goes off on some of her own missions, which you see in some tie-in issues for the Captain Marvel book. The Fantastic Four, who had rescued 2 children, a child of Kree and a child of Skrull, who were both basically engineered to be these soldiers, these young minds that were altered, and they kind of embody all of the history of both of those races. They're kind of like living computers, living encyclopedias or something like that, but they were rescued off this planet because they were living on a planet forced to fight each other as if the Kree and the Skrull war was still going on. So Reed and Sue decided to send these 2 children to be protected on Earth. They sent Valeria and Franklin to protect them over on Yancey Street, which led into a whole nother issue, as the Kotati has many different armies working for them that have kind of been being unrooted in Earth, so to speak. There is one of them, which is the Dark Harvest, which is after these 2 children. So Franklin and Valeria and Alicia, who just recently married Ben Grimm the Thing, are all trying to protect these 2 kids, but they send out a call because they need some more help. So they call out for 2 more people, which 2 former Avengers take the call, which is Spider-Man and Wolverine. So they jump into the fight. And then another place you have the Kotati is basically trying to plant their seed, so to speak, into the soil of Wakanda so they could use the Vibranian energy to just be even more powerful. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I think I covered all of the main themes. You've got Reed and Tony Stark that are just trying to figure out Tony's taking a lot of blame for all the stuff that's going on. There's just a lot of action. It's a lot of fun. There are a lot of tie-in issues, not as many as there would have been if COVID didn't happen. But in the back, you get the big checklist. I'm not reading everything, and we've said this in the past, but a lot of times with the Marvel events, you're pretty good with the main series. I will 100% back that. It is, I believe, a 6-issue run that will conclude in it just says phase 4. I don't know if that's October, I think. All the other tie-ins, Fantastic Four, Captain Marvel, this and that, they all just kind of add some extra goodness to it. But if you are just reading those 6 issues, you get the little footnotes that kind of explain, this was covered in this issue. And if you're really interested in it, then you can go pick it up and get 20 pages more of that story. But yeah, it's a lot.
I'm behind. I'm only about 3 issues in. And so far I haven't, but I have wondered, as I get further in, am I going to miss things because I'm not reading the other parts of it? But so that's good to know. But I can say at least if the first few issues in, I haven't had any kind of problems because I didn't read all the other tie-in things.
Yeah, and like I said, the Captain Marvel book is kind of its own side adventure while it's her in with the Kree hammer and taking up the Kree suit again. But it really is just all these side adventures that, eventually will weave her back into the story. Fantastic Four is just concentrating more on the Valyria and the Franklin of it all. There's not any chapters you're missing. That's probably the best way to say it. You're not missing any chapters of the story by just reading 1 through 6. Issue number 5 is out, which is currently in the mail. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it. So this is one of those that I could see myself down the road, maybe if I come across the other ones, to scoop them up just to get some, just because I am enjoying the main event, I also enjoy some of the other stuff too. Because I read the one that focused on that Kotati king, the Celestial something or other, Lords of Empyre, Celestial Messiah. And that really went into the backstory of all of the crazy swordsman and mantis stuff going on. So while they touch base with that enough in Empyre, if you really want to know more about that, or it's kind of almost a refresher course in that sense, then you can pick up that one shot. But even in the beginning of issue number 4, the first page in story is catching you up, even if you're confused 4 issues in, where it's just kind of like, yeah, here's what's been going on. And rather than just the opening, they have the opening credits previously on, but in the actual story element, you have one of the characters that's kind of explaining everything. And it's a good refresher course beyond the synopsis. So, but yeah, I've been digging the heck out of it. And that's Empyre number 4 of 6. And we'll jump over to Damon for the next one,
which is the next chapter in the conspiracy story called Men in Black. This was an interesting one. Basically, it says Men in Black suits are almost synonymous with UFO sightings. Over the year, it has been said that they have urged many witnesses to remain silent of unexplainable and possibly extraterrestrial phenomenon. Cases of contact with these men appear throughout history, but where do they come from? Who do they work for? And what are their intentions? And are they even men at all? Don't miss the shocking truth unclassified in this issue, but be warned, uncovering the truth may cause more harm than good, as some truths are better left unknown. And I can agree that every one of those questions are answered in this book. This basically, the way these are written is, I think this is like the 4th or 5th issue in the conspiracy series, and each one is basically its self-contained story, but there is a common kind of connection that intertwines all of them together, kind of like the first conspiracy series. This one is basically a group of kids are camping in the woods. They see something in the sky. It crashes. You all know the story. This is the picture of what crashed in the woods. They go and explore. course, some want to run, some want to, check it out, some want to get closer. And long and behold, it's kind of like a War of the Worlds type of thing. The door opens and out comes an arm and a hand. And they come across an alien. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but what happens next is not pretty. The army shows up, or part of the army, basically one vehicle, and then the men in black show up. And you learn what really goes on. The men in black are not all that they seem to be. I don't really know how much I want to spoil this, but, well, for instance, if you don't want to know, don't look away, but you get this one panel, I'll just show this, which kind of says it all.
Ooh.
If you can see the teeth.
Looks like Tony Stark with some dental issues.
But yeah, that's how they're representing how the Men in Black look in this book. They both kind of look the same. They got the same look, and it's a typical, black suit, black tie kind of thing. They're not the good guys, I'll just say that.
No, because the good guy is dressed in black. Remember that?
Yeah, this ain't Johnny Cash. But of course, it ends on kind of the connection between the other stories and the cliffhanger, and we'll have to see what happens next month in the conspiracy story with Black Knight's. That's the advertisement for Black Knight's satellite, which doesn't give a whole lot of details. So overall, the first arc of conspiracy dealt with the Illuminati. This one is dealing with the Area, 51. Alien conspiracy. While I appreciate this better because I'm into the aliens and the Area 51 and all that stuff, I think the writing of the first arc was a little better. That being said, though, these are still enjoyable. They are fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to continuing the series. But that's Conspiracy at Men in Black.
Cool. All right. There seems to be a heavy alien theme in this week's episode, which will probably be reflected in the eventual title. But this is going to be The Walking Dead, The Alien. Somewhere in Barcelona, an American is woken by the sound of screaming. Stranded and alone, his nightmare is just beginning, as the world he knew is gone. Brian K. Vaughan of Saga and Marcos Martin, the Private Eye Barrier, tell a one-of-a-kind story firmly set in the world of the Walking Dead comic books. This oversized hardcover includes the never-before-seen designs, sketches, and layouts. This is something that was presented as a digital comic on the Panel Syndicate, which is, I think, a Brian K. Vaughan co-created online comic source, stuff that is a digital only and then eventually comes out into a print edition. But this is one of those things that he had pitched. I believe he had pitched to Robert Kirkman with maybe an idea, and it's something that I always knew about. I never read it, and then it just came out in hardcover. I'm like, well, now I definitely need it, having read all the other Walking Deads. Going into this, I just thought this was going to be some kind of crazy sci-fi, what if story, if you will. It's called The Alien, and it's done by Brian K. Vaughan. So I just figured, this had nothing to really do with Walking Dead. I just figured it's BKV's version of The Walking Dead in a one-shot story. Well, while reading this comic, I'll say this: you got this guy who wakes up in Barcelona. Yeah, there are walkers, zombies, in the streets. He is rescued by one of our other characters, and basically they go into hiding. He learns from her kind of what her mission is, what his mission is, that he's a character who basically was quarantined in Barcelona and wasn't allowed to go back to the U.S. because of everything that was going on. And he's got family in the U.S. That is desperately, he needs to get back. So that's as much as I want to say about the story. This is all presented in black and white art, so it fits in with, the comic book Walking Dead experience. If I didn't know like this, if you didn't know much about like the writers and artists and stuff, I think this very much feels like the regular Walking Dead series. Very much looks like it as well. I mean, the black and white definitely helps too, but there's really no like outrageous different style to it. So it very much kind of fits that tone. I don't know if that's something that was important to them or just because of the creative team they had and this was their style, but it very much reads and feels just the way the shadows and the tones and all of that kind of stuff. Halfway through reading this book, I was wondering how I was going to talk about this on the club and how I was going to express how, if it was important enough to the Walking Dead fans. And halfway through it, I'm like, you know what? I think I made up my mind. I'm going to say, hey, it's a fun read, but it's not necessary. If you know, it's not going to need to be part of canon, if you will. Then I got to the end of the book, and I basically say, if you are a fan of The Walking Dead, you might want to pick this up because it's awesome. That's really all I can say, because anything more would just kind of ruin it. But yeah, this book is quite a masterpiece, and it's once it says it's firmly set into the Walking Dead universe, and it's and I think Robert Kirkman has said, you know, it's canon story, and yeah, that's all I can say. So yeah, that's The Walking Dead, the Alien graphic novel from Image. That's out there right now, hardcover for $19.99. So it was.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
I was actually contemplating picking this up.
Yeah.
I know a little bit more on what the connection is, on how it connects to The Walking Dead.
Yep.
But I have not read the regular issues. I've only been a fan of the show.
Okay.
But I was planning on picking this up just simply because I really like Brian K. Vaughan's writing. And I assume one day I'm going to start reading The Walking Dead, especially now that it's getting reissued in color. That might be the biggest selling point for me. But can you just pick this up and read it as a self-contained story, or should you have really read The Walking Dead?
You can, because if you know nothing about The Walking Dead, then this is simply, okay, there's zombies in Barcelona, and apparently it's happening in America too, and all across the world. There's not a lot of action. It's a lot of, you know, world building, dealing with these two characters. You really don't meet anybody else. It's just dealing with the two characters, kind of having a dialogue back and forth. So it's not going to give you like a big, like, oh my God, this is gruesome and dark and creepy if you're like a fan of zombies. Just a simple fan of zombies might not find a lot of interest in this, but also they, you know, maybe have already watched or read The Walking Dead anyways. But if you're just been living in a cave, this might not do a lot for you without any Walking Dead knowledge, but it can be read without the Walking Dead knowledge. You're just not going to get, kind of like in that Swamp book you showed, you're not going to get big gruesome art and stuff like that, because it really is just a character story, which we've talked about with the Walking Dead series too. It's less about the zombies and more about the humans and stuff, and this is true for this graphic novel as well. If you have never read the comics but are only a watcher of the show, I think you would still have that same impact with reading this. So whether you're on either level, I think you will enjoy it on the same level. So
now, is the tie-in that we actually finally get aliens in The Walking Dead?
that's funny, because knowing, you know, the pitch of Robert Kirkman and, you know, wanting to sell that book, and said that, oh yeah, he just threw that in there during the pitch where he's just like, it's a zombie book, and they're like, yeah, we don't care about zombies. He's like, oh, but you know, it's in space, you know, aliens, and they're like, oh, go on. And then, you know, he wrote a story, and then like after like month by month and issue after issue, they're like, hey, I thought there was going to be aliens in this, and he's like, oh, they're coming. And then we had joked about that, you know, wondering if that was going to be in the finale of The Walking Dead when the comic wrapped up. So because this is called The Alien, I don't want to mislead anybody, but it has nothing to do with that. So That's the only spoiler I'll give, is that it's not about outer worldly aliens. So. All right. Damon?
All right. Next is the next in Unsacred. It's an Unsacred number 7. I was actually kind of turned on to this by Jim. I think he's still following the series. He looks frozen. Oh, he's nodding. He's alive. Okay. I read this, and then I realized I did not read 5 and 6 because I didn't get them yet. Thankfully, these are more of a even though they are connected, it's more of a self-contained story. So even though I haven't read 5 and 6 yet, I had no problems reading 7. Before I get into it, Jim, did you read this yet? Okay, so then I'm not going to go into too much spoiling territory, and I don't know if you've read 5 and 6 and what exactly is in this, but this
I have read 5 and 6. I'm waiting for that one.
Okay.
But go ahead. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, this deals with basically, I believe in issue 4 they finally got hitched, and the whole point of the story was basically for him to try and get some, and she was waiting for marriage, and what made it funny is all the things that he tried to do, to do what young men try to do. Anyway, so this is the aftermath of what happens when you get hitched, and they're having a kid. And so this kind of deals with the stress involved with that whole scenario. It is kind of funny. There are some scenes, especially with the parents, that made me actually chuckle. It wasn't the best issue in the series so far, but it follows suit. If you've read any of them and you like them, this is pretty much the same. There are some new developments and some new things that were kind of a surprise in here. I don't want to spoil it for Jim and for anyone else that might want to pick these up, but it's basically just the continuation. I don't know how many more of these there's going to be. I know they're advertising in the back already, the hardcover for the whole series. So I'm assuming there's probably only a couple left, unless they decide to do a second arc or a second season. But it's if you like Mirka Andolfo, I'm so bad with names. If you like her art and her writing, it's a fun ride.
When this series was originally advertised, it was only going to be 6 issues. And then all of a sudden I saw the solicitation for number 7. So I was just going to ask you, does it seem like it's wrapping up here, or is it open to continue?
Let me look at the last page again. This actually could be the end. They could end it here. There with Damiano, or however you want to pronounce his name, he kind of comes full circle. I'm not going to explain how. They do end what you think is the last page with the end and a question mark. So that's always a tidbit how this could be the end, but it could continue. But then they kind of do like a scrapbook type of thing, with what would be like pictures, stuff like that. And then after that scrapbook, there's a couple.
The end credits.
Well, after that scrapbook page, there's one page that shows more of the story, but the way it ends, this could be it. This could be it. The last.
Nope,
go ahead.
CLD app lists 7 issues total. So if that's updated, they don't have anything beyond that.
Okay, then this would be
okay. Because I follow her on Facebook, and she has another series that I believe is ongoing at the moment in Italy, which is similar. It's like got the same type of characters. There's an angel and a devil, but the genders are reversed, and they're different characters. But it's currently running in Italy, and it's got a different title that I don't recall off the top of my head. But So it seems like she's not writing this anymore, but I do know that she wrote this several years ago, and it just got translated.
Right. And then she's still working on Mercy, I think.
Yes. Oh, actually, the Mercy is in Italy is a little, just slightly ahead of where it is in English. So.
Okay. Well, and then I guess this is it. I'm sure that the new series she's writing will get translated to English too. She seems to be pretty hot right now.
I should be getting that book soon because I got confirmation on the shipment this morning from Midtown.
Okay, cool. Then also after the end of the comic, there's also a 9-page preview for the Sumerian Red Nails #1, which is kind of like a Conan story.
Oh.
So, and it actually wasn't bad. I read it. And
by her or just from Ablaze?
No, it's written by Regis Hautier.
Okay.
And art by Olivier Vatine and Didier, I am so bad with names, Casagrain. The art's kind of weird, kind of different looking, but it was readable. And then, you got the ads for Vampire State Buildings getting a hardcover. And then, I'm glad to see Unsacred is getting a hardcover because I might pick that up because I really like her writing and her art style.
Oh, two.
Yep, sorry. Of course, that had to be Dave, so he sabotaged my review because he's the one that sent me the text. Oh, he has my 6.
I was just trying to slip in something quietly, and, well, it didn't work.
So,
cool.
Do you have my 5 as well?
No.
Okay.
No, that's probably one of those indie titles that 1 month we
Lost
didn't get
issues.
into. I was thinking I had an extra of #6 and that you had already got it, but if you don't, then this one here is yours.
No, I let me just double check. Yeah, you're supposed to get #6, but I haven't picked it up yet.
Okay.
So that's probably mine.
All right.
So cool. I'll get that next time I swing by.
Great.
So, yeah.
And then you've got one more issue to take us home there with Undiscovered Country, issue #7.
Yes. This was fun. Did you end up reading it today?
I did.
Awesome. Jim, did you decide to... Oh, he left. Okay. Anyways.
He doesn't want anything of it.
No, I think he said he wasn't going to get the issues. He's just going to wait for the trade.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's probably why he walked away. But yeah, this is what I hope is the start of the second movie. I'm really hoping the first arc is the first movie, and this will be the start of the second. But this picks up pretty much where the first one left off. But you get to see a little more. They kind of go, it's like, goes back 21 years ago and then current. And at the 21 years ago, you kind of see what's left of our former capital. You see a president and you see 2 representatives from the 13 colonies that makes up what's left of the United States. And I love the fact that they made the president Clint Eastwood, because I swear
That's
that
what
looks just like Clint Eastwood with an eye patch.
Get out of my colony.
Yeah, and that's how everything he said, that's how the voice I pictured him saying.
That's all I saw as well. So,
but this one sets up many more questions than it answers. I have a feeling this story arc is going to be even better than the first myself. But it picks up with the survivors that escaped Destiny Man's land on their train and what happens to them. I don't want to spoil it, but then at the end, I'm just not even going to spoil it. Like the regular first arc, this does have special features at the end of the issue. There's a real nice, from the archives of the Lafayette Group, and it dealt with the closure of the American border, a nice little sum up on that. There's also, after the sealing, they're going to do reconstruction of events that occurred, that they think occurred within America after we were sealed off from the West. And then I know there's going to be 13 colonies, but they gave us the flags of 6 of them. You know, so there's the top flag for America with the 13 stars, and then I believe that's just 6, maybe the first 6 colonies that were established after we were closed off. And I noticed when they were introducing themselves in the meeting with the president, each group was slightly different. Like Destiny looked like the Wild West, and the Unity Zone looked like, you know, eunuchs. They were bald and dressed the same, men and women. You had the Warriors for Valor, the Men in Black type for the Capital. You know, you had a group that looked like hippies, and it was cool. Like, here is the chamber of what, I'll slowly go up, of what the Capital is today.
And then they had two of the representatives for one of the colonies. I forget the name, but they smelled of Mountain Dew and desperation. Oh wait, that was something else.
But it's a fun start. It definitely leaves you wanting more. I'm looking forward to number 8, and it's going to be fun. I think this, like I said, I have a feeling this could be better than the first story arc. What do you think?
Yeah, it was very good. Not saying details, but I like the design, visual work in the forest that we see.
Yes.
I thought that looked pretty cool. But yeah, this is very character driven, very just kind of setting up obviously what's to come, and but it's still very interesting while getting that little bit of backstory, like you said, with the flashback. But yeah, it's still got my attention.
Definitely.
What I'd be curious about is, you know, when they do the movie versions of this and they get to the second movie, who will play the president?
It'd be cool if they did get Clint.
Yeah, it's definitely like a Sam Jackson thing where they like went so far to draw someone who looks just like Clint Eastwood, and then Clint Eastwood's going to go into a comic book store as he does and flip through and grumble at his image there and demand that he gets to play the role. So
You don't know. Maybe he does every week.
I thought it kind of looked like Dolph Lundgren.
All I got to say is that Clint Eastwood has rejected every invite to the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. I've sent him 144 invites to date, so that's all I can say on that. All
Well,
right.
I know for sure that he's never accepted.
Never when you've been there.
Yeah. So yeah, we are running late on here, so I'm going to postpone the indie previews till next week because the orders aren't due till the 25th, so there's still another week in there. So hold on to those lists, everybody. But yeah, it would be like another 20 minutes show. Something to just do the quick show and tell, so I don't have to wear this T-shirt again next week. It was a very Art and Franco week in the mail. Famous cartoonist Art Baltazar, and you got Franco, and one of their creations who is Patrick the Little Wolf Boy, is the character I tried naming the other week that I just lost in my mind. So I bought that from
Is that
Art.
named after Butch Patrick?
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that from
Maybe.
that Monsters?
Butch Patrick, who played the boy on the Munsters?
I could definitely see that. Maybe I'll find out soon because I bought this from Art, but then I also bought something from Franco's individual store. And before I go to the main item, he had an All Yeah Comics podcast. They're the store owners and comic creators and the Tiny Titans and all that kind of fun stuff. They had a live stream last night, and I introduced myself saying like, hey, I'm the one that bought so-and-so, which I'll talk about over here in a second. And he's like, oh, cool, I just sent your order out, and I threw in some free comics for you. So he gave me an issue of Oh Yeah Comics, Oh Yeah, as well as an issue of Tiny Titans. And what I'm very excited to read, and we'll most likely talk about next week, is Patrick the Wolf Boy Wedding Special. I have no idea what's going to be happening in there, but that looks fun. But he sent that along with some original art. I saw something in his store. He's been doing a lot of stuff during the lockdown and kind of doing a couple sketches a day and then just throwing them up on the internet. And yep, I just saw he had a post-it note with my address here, so I will make sure that's off to the side.
Damn it.
So Kirby doesn't know where I live.
We wouldn't have known what the address is.
Yeah. So I bought this original art from Franco. He did the Silver Surfer as one of his quarantine sketches, and I'm like, yep, I want that. So he sent that on over so I can get that framed and throw it on over in the Silver Surfer shrine. So yep, check out All Yeah Comics and the All Yeah Comics podcast and all of that fun stuff. Oh yeah. All right, that will do it for this issue of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Next week we'll do the independent previews, possibly Batman Adventures Continue #3 until everyone's chimed in. Otherwise, it'll be postponed to the next week. This entire time, I've had a shark attached to my butt, as you do.
I've been thinking about trying to get my own lion cat.
Who am I?
I've been hungry like a wolf.
I've been abducted by aliens and the Men in Black.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
To be continued.